Hello, welcome everybody. It's my great pleasure to welcome you here to the British Library to celebrate with us the 16th Michael Marks Awards for Poetry Pamphlets. As if as a child, they'll be doing their GCSEs. It's lovely to welcome you all here in the library and all those of you following online as well, wherever you are around the world, to hear wonderful talks and readings from our shortlisted and winning poets and publishers. And also welcome to our partners and the people that we work with on the Michael Marks Awards, so Michael Marks Charitable Trust, the Wordsworth Trust, Times Literary Supplement, and also our friends at the Harvard Centre for Hellenic Studies and also the British School in Athens. We're here to celebrate new poetry and the pamphlet and the pamphlet form as a way of exposing, developing, showing, celebrating new poetry and new poets. And that's really important for the British Library and for being here at the British Library as we're kind of a home for creativity, for innovation, for discovery, and also for that sort of keeping the record of what's been published and what's in public discussion. And it's really important that all the pamphlets that are submitted to the awards come here to the British Library. A copy comes to the British Library and becomes part of our collection, part of our legal deposit collection, which is how we collect material that's published in the UK and Ireland, and really how we build a collection that truly represents UK published communication, and it's kind of core to our contemporary collecting. So it's really important that we're here and really important that we're able to celebrate the poets and the publishers. So I'm inviting you to enjoy the presentations and readings, and remember also outside you'll be able to purchase a lot of pamphlets that you'll be hearing from today. Really grateful to Mira and Roundtable Books for stepping in and supporting us there. So do have a peruse afterwards, there's plenty time. But for now, I shall hand over to Marina Lady Marks, Chair of the Michael Marks Charitable Trust, to welcome us and formally open this year's awards. Thank you.
Dear friends, welcome to the Michael Marks Award ceremony, celebrating again the art of poetry in pamphlet form. For the past 16 years, we have seen our awards go from strength to strength and give hundreds of poets, publishers, and illustrators the opportunity to compete with their peers and be judged by eminent specialists, chosen by our partners, the British Library, the Wordsworth Trust, the TLS, and Harvard University, and from this year also the British Academy. And yes, I dare say for the 16th year, I have to tell you that I also have a cold. It says, well, you know, I came from Athens with 25 degrees, and there is a bit of difference here. But anyway, you can hear me, so that's not too bad. Apart from the monetary prizes, the winning poets, as you know, are also given the opportunity to broaden their creative horizons with 1 week in Greece, which is the Fons et Origo of European culture, and all expenses paid. Till this year, the winning poets were hosted by Harvard University's outpost in the city of Nafplion in the Peloponnese in Greece. But from this year onwards, they will be hosted by the British Academy's outpost in Athens, with which we started a new collaboration. As you know, during COVID, our awards were held online, and since then, they were held as a hybrid event, both online and in person. We have now viewers from America, Greece, Ireland, and all over the United Kingdom. And we are hoping in the next few years to enlarge our audience in Europe. Well, the EU, because Britain is also in Europe, you know. But in the rest of Europe, shall we say, we are hoping, we have plans with the British Library to try and expand in the rest of Europe, because they're very interested in what's going on in British literature, and there's no dialogue and communication anymore that much. So we are trying to change that, at least as far as our awards are concerned. We have noticed that while the online attendance is growing exponentially, really growing, the physical presence is dwindling, and we are thinking whether to move to just online from next year, with perhaps a dinner for the finalists and winners only. But we'll see, and we'll let you know when we get the final decision. But coming back to tonight's awards, we have again some amazing entries of poets, publishers, and illustrators. And I would like to invite our administrator, Mrs. Lindsay Forster Holland, to introduce this evening's finalists and eventually the winners in all the competing categories. So enjoy the evening, and thank you for coming.
And thank you, Lady Marks. So I'm hoping you can all hear me okay. I'm using a different microphone because I'm so small, I get hidden behind the lectern over there. Can you all hear me okay? Good, okay. So people at home I'm thinking about as well, because, yeah, sound. Anyway, as you know, my name is Lindsay Forster Holland, and I run the awards. I'll be guiding you through tonight's event. As you also know, it's a hybrid event this year, so we have a lot of people here in the room with us at the British Library, but also a lot of people watching at home, and I hope that all of you, wherever you are going to enjoy the night ahead. So what's in store for us? Well, we have in the room with us all of the shortlisted poets, all people representing them, all of the publishers, judges of the prizes, and the Environmental Poet of the Year is also in the room, and their pamphlet will launch tonight. So, I hope you already know a lot about the Michael Marks Awards, and you've heard quite a bit just now as well. But to say it again, poetry pamphlet publishing is all about our existence is because of poetry pamphlet publishing. Pamphlets have such a long history, both within publishing and poetry. They're both a gateway for new writers, but they're also a place where established writers can experiment in short publications, often with a single theme, or by getting quickly their work in front of readers and audiences. Pamphlets are notoriously difficult to get into bookshops, though, because traditionally they don't have spines. So tonight, for the first time, as Ian mentioned, we have a pop-up bookshop here with us, and it's Round Table Books. They're extremely supportive of pamphlets, so if you're here with us in person, after this event, please go to the bookstore outside in the lobby, browse all of the pamphlets, and support the poets and publishers by buying any you'd like to spend longer with. And if you're watching online, you might want to check out Round Table Books. They have a brilliant bookshop in Brixton, and they run more pop-up stores like tonight's. If you're watching online, you might also want to consider going to our website and following the links on there to buy the books digitally. I don't mean digitally, I mean buy them by ordering them online. So you might also know that we have social media accounts, which will be active tonight. Tonight, for the first time, we're going to be using mostly Instagram. I won't comment on whatever is happening with Twitter or X or whatever you want to call it. But yeah, we're switching. Previously, it's been Twitter. This year, head over to Instagram. Please do post about the event as it unfolds and use the hashtag Michael Marks Awards. Also, please look at our website because there's always lots of information on there. So the evening, in terms of what's going to be happening and when, in the first section, each shortlisted publisher is going to speak about the work of their press and show you some aspects of it. So you'll be seeing a bit on the screen here. At home, you should get a little bit of a split screen thing happening. The TLS judge, Norsh Saber, will then announce this year's overall winner of the Publishers Award. We'll then move on to hear from the Illustration Award judge and the winner. And after that, we'll move on to the Environmental Poet of the Year part of the night. I'll say more about this later, but you'll be hearing from Ben Verinder, who holds the title this year as of today, and he will be launching his winner's pamphlet, How to Save a River. And that's on sale now. You can go and get it outside. It's not yet available to buy online, but that will be happening soon. We'll then have readings from each of the 6 shortlisted poets, and then we'll hear from Judge Michael Simmons Roberts, who will announce the overall winner of the Poetry Award. I'll be introducing each of them in turn. And so, we'll begin with the Publishers Award. New Walk Editions has an evident commitment to building a broad and strong list, including a recent open competition to find excellent performance poets and offer them a first appearance on the page. The press has an open submissions policy and a dedication to producing attractively designed, affordable pamphlets with a cover price or a subscription model of payment. Established names are published alongside debut poets. Please welcome Rory Waterman, who is the editor of New Walk Editions.
Co-editor alongside the very tall man there in the nice jacket. So yeah, Nick Everett and I started New Walk as a magazine in 2010 when I was a PhD student at the University of Leicester, and he was teaching there, nominally one of my PhD supervisors, I think. We didn't know what we were doing. I'm not sure we do yet. Do we know what we're doing yet, Nick? We certainly didn't know what we were doing then, and we half expected to have to fold after a couple of issues. But 7 years later, and not having had to fold at all, we took the decision to replace New Walk magazine with New Walk Editions, publishing 4 pamphlets a year and editing 2 of them each. Our first pair of pamphlets were a debut publication by Zainab Alak, edited by me, and edited by Nick, a pamphlet by John Mole. 2 poets at very different points in their careers and writing largely out of very different traditions. The desire to juxtapose has persevered. Lindsay mentioned that pamphlets are spineless. I hope we're not spineless as a press. In spring 2023, we replaced 1 pair of pamphlets with our first book publication, The Ghost Net by Alan Jenkins, but we remain very much drawn to the potential of the poetry pamphlet, the cottage industry nature of it, and to working closely with 2 poets at a time. Nick edits one, I edit another, and we sort of switch and work together with that way. We've always had an international focus. Our past 4 pamphlets have comprised Penny Boxall's The Curiosities, Blake Morrison's Never the Right Time, Darren Sandy's The Chaos, and Shannon T. Smith's Sandsbound. Oh, there it is. The latter 2 were co-edited with Kelsey Delaney, to whom we owe very significant thanks. She's sitting there looking much smaller than Nick because he's so tall. But we owe very significant thanks to you, Kelsey. And they're the first results of an initiative on our part to discover and introduce to British readers excellent English language poets from other parts of the world, starting with the Caribbean. We're proudly independent of any funding, which makes things a struggle at times, but still a joyous one. And thank you ever so much to the panel for shortlisting us and to the competition for existing in the first place. Thank you.
Thanks, Rory. So we're moving on to the Emma Press. They're keen to make literature accessible and to encourage emerging artists. The press invests in the career development of its writers in the form of showcase live events, podcasts, blog posts, and other promotional opportunities. They work closely with a local printer and are committed both to supporting local arts industry and to prioritising environmental sustainability. This year, the Emma Press has extended its activities to include the developing of poetry editors, with an Arts Council England grant allowing the creation of the Birmingham Editorial Readers Group. Editor James Trevelyan will now tell you more.
Hi everyone. My name's James. I'm the editor of these pamphlets and the director of the Emma Press. Thank you for shortlisting us to the judges. The Emma Press was founded by Emma, Diane Wright, in 2012 with the mission to publish beautiful books and to make publishing more open and accessible to a wider range of writers. We are grateful to have a long history now with the Michael Marks Award. The very first books Emma published were poetry pamphlets, and we are passionate that they remain a fundamental part of what we do, even though our wider work has extended into different genres and format. In August this year, we received over 350 poetry pamphlet submissions, which I think goes a small way to showing the demand from writers, both emerging and established. The 3 pamphlets we entered this year, one was Laurie Bolger's Makeover, which explored family, girlhood, and working class women in poems that were dripping in nostalgia, we said. We're really excited by the sales for this. Actually, Laurie's hand-sold loads of copies, hundreds at her reading events, and we also had Waterstones stocking in branches across the country, which, as Lindsay said, is a rarity for a stapled book. And while Laurie's more experienced, In the Name of Red was Zed Argani's debut, a luxurious lyrical work exploring faith, literature, and personal myth. We found it incredibly varied, but all held together by a redness in every poem. The pamphlet was really well reviewed and gave us our first ever poem of the week in The Guardian. And in summer, we published Mother Night by Serge Neptune, sent out with special edition drawings. It's a kind of titleless, hallucinogenic journey about the author's queer experience in London. A book of many types of darkness, but what we loved about it was always celebrating resilience and looking for the light. As you see, all our books were launched online and in person, including at Emma Press showcases in London and near our offices in Birmingham. We also print locally, as you said, a company called The Holodeck, who produce beautiful artisan first editions, invariably on salvage paper to save on waste. I'll just finish by looking ahead. We've just published Cathy Pimlott's very powerful pamphlet on grief, and 2 more slated for next year, as Lindsay said, were selected by our Birmingham Editorial Readers Group, which was a community project that we set up with Arts Council funding. So I'll just finish by thanking our very small team, Georgia, who's here with me tonight, and Perry and Emma, of course, and to the judges for shortlisting us this year. Thank you.
Thanks, James. So next, I want to talk to you about Guillemot Press. Guillemot has become something of a regular on our shortlists, and Nadira Wallace's shortlisted pamphlet, Sidekicks for Clouds, from this year, is a sublime example of this. It shows the careful attention Guillemot pays to design and sustainable materials, as well as the quality of the poetry and editing. But aside from this, Guillemot works hard for their new and young writers. Behind the scenes, they've begun introducing these new writers to literary agents and making sure they understand about the business aspects of being a poet. This kind of professional nurturing is important to Guillemot Press, and it's rarely done by small press publishers. So please welcome up Luke Thompson, who will talk to you a little bit more about what they do.
Yeah, so it's been great hearing people thanking their printers, and so I was down in the print studio when asked to do a little video or slideshow. So I just got it rolling, and you'll see the print. It's a good job it's silent actually, because there's a lot of shouting and a lot of clanking and all sorts of noises of Roy, who we've worked with since our very first book, and we're just about to do our 100th title in the new year, and we've done all of them in this chaotic space. I think it's in like an 11th century building in Lostwithiel, just down the road from where we live. So, yeah, I wanted to start, although I've started, by thanking Lady Marks and Lindsay for all their work and for inviting us back, and also all the judges. It's really lovely to be here again. This is actually the first time we've managed to get here in person since, I think, 2019. And it's really good as well to be able to meet old friends like the Emma Press, who actually met Emma first here in, I think, 2015 or 16. When we both had other little wins on there. And also congratulations to everyone involved, the publishers and all of the poets. We've submitted 3 poets, and we've got one of them, Nadira, on the shortlist, who you'll be hearing from a little bit later. We also submitted Phoebe Powers and Nina Mingia Powell's. But we actually had lots of other sort of pamphlets and booklings along the way this year. It's been quite a good pamphletty year. We started off the year with 3 non-fiction pamphlets by debuting writers in collaboration with the Willowherb Review, which was fantastic. And we have this other concept of booklings, which we've kind of developed for things that don't quite qualify as a pamphlet. They sort of come to us in pamphlet form, and then we illustrate them or break them up into little sections, and before you know it, they're sort of 70 pages, and they're much more book-shaped, bookish ambitions, someone once said. But yeah, so that's what we've been doing this year. We've got another big year ahead. I think we've done 15 titles this year. We were only meant to do 6 or 8, but we got carried away. And it's looking quite similar next year. Every year we say we're going to sort of quieten down a little bit, and then we get so many amazing submissions that we just can't ignore. But I wanted to put the printers up as well to sort of thank them and acknowledge their role within Guillemot Press, because, like I say, they've been with us from the beginning, and we both changed the way we work around what they can do and around what we do. So that one of the machines that you'll see, that foiler only came in because we started saying we want to foil just about everything. And they've got a sewing machine as well. They weren't sewing, they were just perfect binding books, but we wanted our books and pamphlets to last longer. So we asked everything to be sewn, and they ended up getting this machine that you'll see with the spools on it in a little bit, I think. And apparently that's the only one. They tend to get they've got some quite classic and old equipment. Classic's probably the nice way. The sewer we have is the only one in the country apparently that is still working with these particular curved needles. So it's once it breaks down, you know you're in trouble. But I wanted to acknowledge them and to thank them as well, because we have sort of developed together how we work, and it's been great fun. So yeah, again, thank you for inviting us back. It's lovely to see you all in person. I look forward to speaking to more of you after this bit. And again, congratulations, especially to Nadira.
Thank you, Luke. Dare Gale Press stood out for the range of entries, which is eclectic, and because the quality of poetry is excellent. Throughout this year's judging process, there were Dare Gale pamphlets in the mix. The choices of font, setting, and quality of paper are exemplary, and there's a strong sense of environmental responsibility. There's also a rich mix of established and early career poets. The publisher's declaration states, "For us, a pamphlet is like a concept album, with both poetry and design focused on a central idea or theme. These are pamphlets to sit and enjoy and to collect." Editor Paul O'Prey is here to tell you more. Here he is.
Thanks, Lindsay. I suspect there are people in the room who have an age that a concept album doesn't mean an awful lot, but I'll explain it later over a drink what a concept album is. I thought I would say a bit about our name, because people ask what it is. It's a word coined by Gerard Manley Hopkins, a great hero of mine, a Dare Gale skylark, and since the time of the troubadours, that's been a symbol of the poet's voice. And Hopkins also a sort of inspiration for the sort of poetry we aspired to publish, which was going to be intensely lyrical, it was going to be serious but not heavy, and it was going to be trying to connect our inner and outer worlds in a way that felt imaginative and new and thoughtful. And Hopkins was discouraged as a poet in his lifetime, didn't publish anything in his lifetime, couldn't get it published. And that also spoke to our desire to give new and emerging voices a platform and a chance to read alongside and be part of a community of more established poets. And it's great that one of our debut poets, Nicola Healy, is shortlisted this year. We just started doing pamphlets in 2022. We published 4 then. We've done 6 years since then. And we started with 2 real maestro poets, John Burnside and David Harson. And that, first of all, they put enormous trust in us as a new publisher. But that did feel like diving into the deep end when we weren't even sure we were able to swim. But their support and encouragement was what gave us the confidence to get going. I think there's a lot of very good poetry being written today, and we're very pleased to help introduce at least some of it to the world. And we hope that our readers will keep and treasure our pamphlets, both for the wonderful poetry they contain, but also for the feel and look of the pamphlet itself. As Lindsay said, we worked very hard to get really nice G.F. Smith paper. It feels nice and stiff and feels good. And the standard cover format was in part inspired by the French publisher Gallimard. And in the early 20th century, they produced this range of very beautiful books, which was based on typography, which taught us the importance of font and type and color and so on. But then we added a large image to the covers to help us with to make them more striking. And Pilar and I would also, same as Luke, like to congratulate all of those publishers and poets shortlisted today, and to thank Lindsay and to thank Lady Marks for supporting pamphlets and small presses with these excellent awards. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Paul. Now that we've learnt more about the publishers, I'd like to introduce Judge Norsh Sabah, who is the judge chosen by our partner, the TLS. As well as writing for the TLS, Norsh is a writer, editor, and educator based in the West Midlands. Her pamphlet Litanies was shortlisted for the Poetry Award in 2022. She will now tell you more about the judging of this award, and will announce and then hand over to this year's overall winner, who will receive a prize of £5,000. Please welcome Norsh Sabah.
Excuse my awkward walk there, trying to hide this secret of who the winner is, just for a few more moments. Good evening, everyone here. It's so lovely to be back here at the British Library with you, and to everyone watching online as well. We've already heard in their own words from all the wonderful publishers shortlisted tonight, but I did want to just thank the Michael Marks for the opportunity to read these wonderful pamphlets this year, and the TLS too, and just to congratulate and commend all the shortlisted poets and publishers for this year's awards. I think from everything that we've heard tonight from the publishers, you can see how this shortlist really strongly represents, the very best that small press publishing in poetry has to offer readers. And I touched a little bit in my review for the TLS of the awards on how sometimes in contemporary poetry publishing it can be seen as a little bit of a criticism that it caters perhaps to a niche audience. But I think what we've heard tonight really shows how worthwhile and how valuable that is, that not everything is for mass market, not everything is commercial, not everything is for a popular audience, but instead the passion, the vision, the unique tastes and the careful attention that these publishers bring to their books really makes the case for creating, they really create something that's unique and sometimes radical and pleasurable for those readers that are seeking out something perhaps away from the trodden path. So I'll now be quiet after I announce the news that you're all waiting for, and invite Dare Gale Press to accept the award for the publisher this year. I was told we had to pose for photos, so we just had a little pause there, and I'll leave you to accept.
Well, that's fantastic news, and now thank you so much. It's fantastic news and a huge encouragement to me and Pinar to. I think it's going to spur us on to be even more ambitious and adventurous in the years to come. I do feel that pamphlets are having a bit of a moment in Britain, and it doesn't seem to be happening else. It's interesting what Lady Marks was saying about going into Europe. It seems to be a particularly British enthusiasm for the pamphlet at the moment that is really taken off. And I think you can sort of sit down with a pamphlet with a cup of coffee and read it all through. And there is this opportunity for the poet to experiment or to try something new or to really have a deep dive into a particular theme or subject. And so we'd like to thank the judges and again all of the partners, and again a huge thank you to Lindsay and to Lady Marks. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Norsh and Paul, and congratulations to Der Gale Press. And also to everybody else that was on the shortlist for that, because it's a big deal to be on the shortlist too. But hearty congratulations. We'll now move on to the Illustration Award. This award is part of the awards because poetry pamphlets are often at their best beautiful objects in their own right, as well as vehicles for new poetry. This aspect of pamphlet publishing could and should be celebrated. It's a part of what makes many pamphlets special to hold and read. The award is for £1,000, and this year has been judged by Sir Nicholas Penny. You might have heard from him in previous years. Sir Nicholas was director of the National Gallery London from 2008 to 2015, keeper of the Department of Western Art at the Ashmolean Museum in London, and senior curator of sculpture and decorative arts at the National Gallery of Art in Washington. He's authored many books and articles on both painting and sculpture. All of this experience means that he understands that good illustrations should complement a text, as well as being of high quality in their own right as art. Please welcome Sir Nicholas Penny.
Simon Madrell, they, is a queer Manx poet thriving in Brighton and Hove, and he may also be here tonight. His collection, with the extremely disturbing title, A Finger in Derek Jarman's Mouth, is an act of rather weird homage to Derek Jarman, based on scraps of Jarman's own poetry and texts, and haunted by visits to the cottage at Dungeness. I find this sort of hagiography very disturbing, even slightly creepy, and but it ill becomes an art historian to scorn the veneration of relics. And Madrell's poems have a genuine, sad, angry, touchy, prickly character, which I found hard to put down. But that was partly because of Peter Collins at Polari Press, who is responsible, so the small type tells me, for the cover design, which is very subtle, for the artwork, and for the typesetting, and the general appearance of this sort of hardback pamphlet, which is blue. It is for the artwork and what I will call the illustrations, which secure for Peter Collins this prize. And these are cyanotypes, a word which may not be familiar to you, and indeed is not included in the OED, at least in my OED, or even in the revisions of the OED as known to me. Cyanotypes were invented in 1842 by Sir John Herschel, and they were employed in the following year by Anna Atkins for her British Algae, which began publication then and continued for a decade. They were known as photograms, and as a branch of photography of a kind, they precede, they're very competitive, the historians of photography, they precede by a year Fox Talbot's Pencil of Nature. The idea arose from the fashion for assembling or buying assembled albums of pressed seaweed or marine algae. These are very beautiful things. The actual seaweed can very often hardly be perceived by the human eye, but when it's spread out on, and absorbed into the paper on a page, it has extraordinary delicate appeal. So look out for photograms, but also for for these, the beautiful blue color of cyanotypes. This marine algae, this is of course sometimes depicted in the cyanotypes, which serve as an illustrations for this poetry. And they have a kind of ambiguous status as themselves being fragments and of a type of nature which has now a poignancy because so little of it actually survives and can be found on our shores. The beautiful photograms of Atkins are recalled in these illustrations, but the process by which paper coated with a ferric salt and potassium ferricyanide is exposed to light, producing an image in the insoluble pigment of Prussian blue, this is all quoted, of course, came to be used for simple reproductions of architectural plans, blueprints. But we won't call these blueprints. In addition to the strange beauty of what was washed up on the shore or grew in the garden at Dungeness, we see here the cottage itself and a blood cell. And they're woven together very beautifully with this strange poetry. I now call upon Peter Collins to receive his prize, although I don't have the prize in my hands, but Peter, we'll do something. Oh, is this it? Oh, sorry, Peter, it's framed in the same way as the last one. So I didn't want to give you, the last one. So I'm going to give you this. You have to shift a little. So we can... It's blue, too. You like that, won't you? Good. Anyway, congratulations.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Congratulations.
I have, yes. I've got a few words.
Prepared?
Yes.
You knew it was going to happen.
Yes, thank you, everyone. Thank you to the Michael Marks Awards and the judge, obviously, for presenting me with this award and for also celebrating the poetry pamphlet form in itself. As we've heard already, it's an incredibly important part of our literary world. Thanks to my family, my dad, my sister, and my late mum for always supporting me in my creative career. And thank you to the poet Simon Madrill for agreeing to have the pamphlet illustrated and advising me on the suitable themes and connections between the poems and imagery. To Matt David as well for teaching me the cyanotype process, because I hadn't really used it before, giving me the skills to create the cyanotype impressions, and also to Earthbound Press for creating the handcrafted risograph limited edition version that these images are from. I also want to take a moment to think about a theme of the pamphlet, if I can, how gardening and the action of growing can be a form of therapy, defiance, and protest. Earlier this year, I learned of Youssef Abu Rabi, an agricultural engineer who started growing vegetables in the ruins of his family's farm in northern Gaza. When forced from his home by Israel's bombings, he returned at night to gather seeds and seedlings, using them to grow crops to distribute to others to bring some dignity and food security. He since co-founded Thamra, which provides Palestinians with seedlings and education on how to grow urban gardens. On the 21st of October this year, Youssef was targeted and killed by an Israeli drone strike alongside 2 colleagues. He was 24 years old. In an interview before his death, Youssef said, "I don't expect to live long because I do the thing that drives the occupier crazy the most. I return what they want to prevent us from doing. I decided to help everyone plant everything they have, whether it's on roofs, destroyed houses, or anywhere else." I continue to take great power and hope from Youssef's actions of defiance in protecting his community. Thank you for listening.
Thank you to Sir Nicholas Penny, and congratulations to Peter Collins for winning the Illustration Award. I didn't get a chance to say earlier, but many of you might know that Peter Collins runs Polari Press. So it's quite nice to see him being acknowledged for his illustrations, I think, now. So next we're moving to the Environmental Poet of the Year. You may know, and I've said it before, that the Michael Marks Charitable Trust has twin aims: to promote the arts and to promote the environment. These aims led to this, I think, terrific prize. So, if you're watching at home, consider how you too could work the threat of climate change, that's how it affects you personally right now, if you're a poet, into a small portfolio of poems for next year's competition. This is not about nature poetry. There's still a misconception here, but rather it's about how the threat of a tumultuous future is hanging over all of us. You might say that even the most personal poetry is about an individual being aware of this problem now. The winner receives the title, pamphlet publication, £1,000, a trip to Greece, and at least one event with Wordsworth Grosmere. We first launched the prize unintentionally during a heatwave. This year, and I'm going to digress here, bear with me just for a moment to speak personally, I had this uncanny sense in January that it would be the year of the water. And although I had no idea what that strange phrase could mean, I think we can probably agree that the UK's rain and floods have proven a point in 2024. But so was our Environmental Poet of the Year, Ben Verinder, with his winning pamphlet, How to Save a River. The pamphlet looks at all aspects of rivers, from the power of water to the various animals that live in it. These are set alongside a theme of grief over the loss of a parent. We have a separate judging panel for this prize. Poet Jacob Polly, creative health consultant Helen Wilson, and biologist, filmmaker, and writer Tom Mustill were this year's 3 judges. They're deliberately a diverse group of people. Tom was going to be here with us tonight, but, and it's really such a shame to say, he really, really wanted to be here. Sadly, he's very unwell with flu, and described to me that it would not be a nice scene for him to be up here. So instead, I'd like to invite on stage Michael McGregor, who's the director of Wordsworth Grosmere, and we're going to talk a little more about the prize and about our collaboration with Wordsworth Grosmere. So if Michael, you'd like to come up and join me. I'll hand over to Michael just for a moment.
Thanks very much indeed, Lindsay, and apologies to all the Tom Bustle fans in the audience. I'm a very poor substitute. It is a privilege and a pleasure for the Wordsworth Trust to be a partner in the Michael Marks Environmental Poet of the Year Awards. And once again, it demonstrates that Lady Marks and the trustees of the Michael Marks Charitable Trust are bold and innovative in their thinking. For us, we regard Wordsworth as arguably the first environmental poet. He had a wish for his poetry that it live and do good. And that sense of poetry as an active force for change is something that we embrace wholeheartedly at Wordsworth Grasmere. Whether it's a contemporary art installation that enables visitors to see into the life of things, or guided walks for schools, looking at biodiversity through a Wordsworthian lens, we demonstrate Wordsworth's continuing relevance in a time of climate crisis. Wordsworth celebrated our interconnectedness with the natural world and cautioned against what he called our meddling intellect, interfering with and upsetting the balance of the very thing that sustains us. Instead, we should bring to nature a heart that watches and receives. We're very much looking forward to welcoming Ben Verinder to the inevitably rainy Grasmere at some point during the course of the year to share his wonderful pamphlet and also his wonderful expertise in workshops and readings. And also it's an opportunity for us to say that the pamphlet will be available in the bookshop at Wordsworth Grasmere, so that's another very good reason for you to come and pay us a visit. Thank you.
So I'm going to invite Ben up here in just a moment, but just to touch on that, we're yet to finalise the date of the Grasmere event, but that is likely to be a full event with Ben, all about the environment. If you can get up to Grasmere, we'll put information on our website about that, possibly out on social media too, but yeah, look out for that. It's been a really special event for the past couple of years. I wanted to say a little bit about the judging because Tom isn't here, and I chair the judging meetings in a non-executive capacity, but I'd like to say a few words about what the judges found. First of all, I want to mention that the person who came second, so the second prize, we don't have a prize for the second and third, and in previous years we've just commended people, but this year the judges very strongly wanted to give a second prize to Rachel Bauer for her portfolio Colour and Wing, and a third prize to Max Wallace for Love's Wild Departing. So we want to acknowledge those two poets as well because they were really terrific terrific portfolios. If you look on our website, you can read a poem by each of those people. They were really, really impressed by Ben's work for the way that the more they read it, the more it spoke to them, and by the various depths. There's a lot of scientific information there in terms of the wildlife. Tom knew very well that this person seemed to have experienced it. They were writing from experience. They knew what they were talking about. But there was this personal, emotional resonance to it as well. And it really gripped them. They loved reading it. So that's what this is all about. If we can please welcome up, he's going to read about 5 minutes or so, a few poems. You'll hear more if you can get up to Grasmere. If we can welcome up Ben Verinder.
Niftily done there, Lindsay.
Do you want me to do this first?
Yeah, I think we should stand here, Ben, so we can present you with the award.
Thank you.
Congratulations.
Thank you. Do the old smile at the camera. I'm trying to think, what did Wordsworth say? One impulse from a vernal wood can teach us more of moral evil and of good than all the sages can. So remember that. I'm going to start with some thanks, which I do have to say, because I've got people, partly because the reason why I hope this was slightly well-informed scientifically was because the research for this book involved interviewing about 25, 30 people from around the world who work in riverine conservation. I can't say thanks to them all. I know quite a lot of them are watching from far away. So I just want to say thank you. You're all mentioned by name in the pamphlet. And it's really a celebration of your work and what you do for riverine ecosystems. And without you, we'd be in a much poorer place. I'd also like to thank my MA tutors. So this was part of a broader project. We have about 60 poems, a collection, not been published yet. Hello, publishers. Nice to meet you. That's a cheeky bit out there. My MA tutors, Glyn Maxwell and Tammy Osoloff, who were incredible. It was a brilliant MA from the Poetry School and Newcastle University. I'd also like to thank John Stammers, who I know is watching, the brilliant John Stammers, who reintroduced me to poetry at the City Lit, a brilliant place to start learning or reinvigorating my interest in poetry. And to John Glenday, who is my mentor, for his great kindness and generosity and wisdom. He's also a brilliant poet if you ever get hold of his nature poetry. To Helen Mort and Fiona Benson as well, who are recent mentors or and supporters of mine. To Sarah Gibbons, who's for her incredible patience, and to the other MA workshop groups that I've been involved with, and to my Tuesday group. So I have a group with the amazing Vanessa Lampart and Emma Simon and Kat Dixon. So thank you to them as well. And lastly, thank you very much to the judges for your kind comments, which were hugely appreciated, and to the Michael Marks Foundation and to Lady Marks. It's beautiful to be recognised for doing something that you've been striking away for a few years. This is my third pamphlet, so I must like them. I'm going to read a couple of things. I'll read the title poem. I hope you're able to have a look at it and get a copy yourselves. So again, like all the poems in this book, it's a true story of sorts, and it's based on an interview with a lovely lady. How to Save a River. Take a young girl, 6 or 7, and have her mother make one last sweep of a net in the black pool, a mating pair of crested newts. Bring them home and build an aquarium long before this is against the law, where the female lays little by little the white embryos in a sack among the weeds. Wait 70 years, and the woman who was the girl will recall the larvae, keel-tailed, feathery, and so lucid she could watch their bodies working within them. The Daphnia packed into the gut as they gushed into efts, a word you'll think translucent. Then she'll describe how this morning she was at the river early, taking a sample of the sediment, light through the trees and immersion, how everything comes back to water. Thank you. The whole book is a conversation with my late father, really. So the wider project is a sort of exploration of an idea that to what extent is revisiting someone's reputation, your relationship with them, the act of forgiveness, I suppose, to what extent is that similar to restoring or rescuing a river? So it has a variety of different themes to it. So this, like all the rest of the poems, is a conversation with my dad. And it's about, he was a very good fly fisherman. He was pretty good. My mum was better. She was brilliant. And they both, I didn't, but they were very keen and expert salmon fisher people in their day. We don't really know why salmon return to the rivers of their birth. We think it's something to do with magnetism and also to do with chemical receptors and being able to pick up chemicals. And this is a poem about that, but it's a poem about other things as well. So it's called Smolt. And it starts with an epigraph from that well-known publication, Physics World. Tiny crystals of iron-based magnetite have been found in specialized receptor cells in the noses of salmon. They're no bigger than iron filings in the reds, soon the size of pinheads, then needles, easily disorientated by flood, sewage, drought, whole arrays lost to eel and pike. If they navigate the year, Parmark's ferrus, lodestone eyes, the heron and cormorant bewilder them, also the seal, the otter. Survivors thrum, you said. Shimmering nickel in the ebb, alloys of salt and river waiting to point north, northwest, but no one is sure of their polarity. How those bearing the blast of winters at sea find a way back to the estuary to smoulder in the waters of their awe. Nor do I know how impossibly I arrived here, thinking of you as I season the salmon in a warm, bright kitchen where my love practices scales, finds her voice in the connecting room. Only perhaps when I was young, something you said crystallized, guided me through. Thank you. And I must say, also, I forgot to say thank you to my friends who've come all the way, some from far away to come tonight. I really appreciate it. Thank you.
Congratulations again, Ben, and thank you for that. It was lovely to hear them. So, a reminder to those of you who are in the room, you can buy How to Save a River tonight at the Round Table bookstore outside, and it'll later be available in the shop here and at Wordsworth Grasmere, but it might take a while to get onto the shop systems. But yes, if you're here, best chance before Christmas. So we're now entering the final section of tonight's event. We're back to the awards for published pamphlets, and our last for tonight, which is the Poetry Award. The prize for this is £5,000 plus the trip to Greece in association with the British Academy, which is our new partner. Our first poet is Geordie Dothe and his pamphlet Slow Burn. The poems are in both English and Spanish, with English translations by Paul O'Prey. Now, you've already heard from Paul because he is the editor of Dare Gale Press, so he'll be back on stage in just a moment. You're about to hear one of the poems in both languages. I have to say, I can't wait for this. I hope you'll bear with me because I want to say a little about both the poet and the translator here, as well as the pamphlet itself. Geordie has a large readership in Spain and was born in Asturias. He wrote a thesis, though, on Peter Redgrove and worked as a language assistant at Oxford University. But his poetry has been mostly published in Spanish. He's had 7 poetry volumes published, 9 books of essays, criticism, and diaries, and is a prolific translator himself. He lives in Madrid, but is with us here tonight. You've already heard, as I said, from Paul O'Prey more than once, but as well as being editor of Dare Gale Press, he's clearly a brilliant academic, critic, and translator himself. His works include the likes of the introduction to the Penguin edition of The Heart of Darkness, to pick just one from a very long list. The poems in Slow Burn are striking for the way they move outside of time. There's a poetic strangeness that grows richer with each rereading, and yet the poems are easy to read. The language is simple and unadorned. All 3 judges kept coming back to this work. Please welcome Geordie and Paul.
Thanks, Lindsay. We've agreed that, or we decided that we're going to do the English first, and then Geordie will read in Spanish. And then suddenly, there's a room missing in the house, which you can't find because it isn't there. Even though just yesterday there was a door that opened and closed like normal, as if automatically. We used to go in and come out without a second thought. And the ritual of bumping into each other was like a stage trick old actors used to make themselves seem real. Now we look for that room in our dreams, in our unfaithful memory. But it isn't there. Gone into the mist, vanished from our world, suspended in its own void. We dropped our guard for just a moment, and it disappeared, fallen far beyond the other side of this voice. We used to go in and come out, not realizing there was any danger. And then suddenly death made its move, exactly how it wanted to, without any hint, without any warning, and took the whole house.
Good evening, everybody, and many thanks for being here. Thanks to the judges. Congratulations to my fellow nominees. Thanks to Lindsay and Lady Marks. It's a privilege to be here because for me, the British poetic tradition is as important or as nurturing as my own native tradition, the Spanish-speaking tradition is. So this is a real privilege for me. And I have to thank especially Paul for his wonderful work translating these poems and for having invited me so generously to be part of the list of the Ergal Press. So with further ado, I'll read the poem in Spanish. Y en la casa, de pronto, hay una habitación que falta, que nadie encontrará porque no existe, aunque ayer mismo estaba ahí y su puerta se abría por costumbre con el aire de los automatismos. Entrábamos y salíamos así de fácil, y el ritual de los encuentros era un modo de hacernos más veraces como viejos actores. Ahora buscamos esa habitación en sueños, en el recuerdo infiel, pero no está. La niebla la borró de este mundo y cuelga en el vacío de sí misma. Nos descuidamos un instante y no está. Cayó muy lejos, al otro lado de esta voz. Entrábamos y salíamos sin darnos cuenta del peligro. De pronto, entre nosotros, la muerte se movió a placer, sin señal de advertencia, sin huella de la tora. Casa tomada. Thanks.
Thank you, Jodie and Paul. That was lovely to hear. I'm excited about each one, I have to say, but I think it's the first time we've had poetry in another language on this stage, so that's nice. So we're moving on to our next poet, which is Eric Yip, with his pamphlet Exposure from Ignition Press. Eric Yip is from Hong Kong. You may well know that he won the 2021 National Poetry Competition. He was also shortlisted for the 2023 Forward Prize for Best Single Poem. Exposure is bold in its experimentations with form and filmic in its visual sweep. The poems explore queer and migrant experiences with a cinematographer's eye. In some poems, cityscapes form the backdrop for self-discovery, and the figure of the mother with her potential for distancing reproval seems to haunt the speaker. It's an undeniably powerful pamphlet from an undeniably strong voice. Please welcome Eric Yip.
Thank you so much for the wonderful introduction, and I want to thank the judges and also to Ignition Press who published this pamphlet, to Neil, to Claire, and to my editor, Les Robinson. It was a great joy to work with him, and this pamphlet wouldn't have been possible and wouldn't be what it is now without his editing. So I'll just read two short poems from the pamphlet. And the first one is called Blueprint. Blueprint. Some highway whipped between buildings, bearing freight trucks with rotating bellies in procession towards auction sites where sad giraffes leer. The city sprawl resounds with traffic and the multitude of endings each map route implies. It is not easy to view this unobstructed. From the mind's wrangle materials, I construct the blueprint of what I cannot reach. The brain maintains the self's enamel. What is repaired repeatedly prevails. So the second poem I'll read is the last poem in the book, and it's a love poem. Tenor. Now that I feel love, all metaphors have turned duplicitous. We lay down in the meadow to read, grass crammed into our necks. There were no buildings, only words or sequences of words I could use to describe my feelings for you, but chose to reveal piecemeal so as to remain mysterious. And when you laid your calves over mine, the fuss reminded me of grass cut exceedingly finely, or that night when we shed all pretenses, took off our clothes, split peaches in the dark, and ate them. Thank you.
Thank you, Eric. So our next poet is Nicola Healy with her pamphlet, A Newer Wilderness. Now, this is another pamphlet published by Dargale Press. Nicola's poems have appeared in many major magazines, and she was a runner-up in the Ginkgo Prize 2020. Her prose writing is also notable. She's the author of Dorothy Wordsworth and Hartley Coleridge, The Poetics of Relationship, which was published by Palgrave Macmillan, and which came out of her PhD from the University of St. Andrews. She's also written essays and reviews on Coleridge, Mary Shelley, and Philip Larkin. A Newer Wilderness is Nicola's debut pamphlet. There's a beautiful control to the poems. They're musical. It's lyric poetry, but it isn't just interested in local effect. It isn't showy. Her personality isn't foregrounded. She's writing personally, and there's a vulnerability here, a deep existentialist quality alongside a great imaginative humility. I quote, "A flower can save your life like the most powerful of drugs," she writes. "You may think this doesn't matter. There is little that matters more." Unfortunately, Nicola is unable to be with us tonight. So we had a bit of a talk about what to do, and I am going to be reading a couple of poems from her pamphlet for her. So I hope you'll bear with me. I need my glasses because what I've secretly done is printed what I'm reading to you in very large font. However, the font in this is not quite so large. So, glasses on. And I'll do my best to do them justice. It won't be like hearing from her, but I hope that you'll appreciate them. May morning. A sudden smell of cress in this corner of the garden. Fresh dampness, green warmth, a dew-rinsed earthiness, the smell of germination. The day hasn't yet had time to sag under its own weight. All is newly alive. White lilacs over there, a few petals just starting to brown, but for now they foam with plumes of scent, waves bubbling on a shoreline. I am breaking out of a tomb. I know it won't last, this grace, but today I'm free. And then I'm going to read the title poem for you. This is A Newer Wilderness. There is a world that must lie always just beneath and around the corner from things as they are, where the moon is more moonly, Bird song almost hurts, and words leap out of their lettery shells. Each articulate leaf and irradiated cloud appears in relief, pristine as newly minted coins. Incessant thoughts, a murder of circling crows, are gone, and the head is bright and clear. All things, down to your charged cells, hum with strength and purpose, their surety. Everything is simply involved, reaches towards you out of chaos, cooperates. It's lonely to live on with everything, knowing what it can be. The lit center is encrypted again, the world a sphinx. I am in exile at home. It is as though the earth was happy with me, and now it's not. Some blessed admittance has ceased, discarded from an eternal pact. So that was from Nicola. Our next poet is Nadira Wallace, with their pamphlet Sidekicks for Clouds. Nadira has written essays and reviews for Textual Practice, Spam Magazine, and Rain Taxi. Their creative work has been published in Shearsman Magazine. This is Nadira's first pamphlet, and it showcases a voice that the judges all felt destined to be heard more widely in the years to come. The pamphlet shows rare ambition and originality of a debut collection. The poems are hard-won, pared back, assured too, but not in the claims they make. Their assurance is rooted in clarity of intent, an uncompromising push to explore religious faith and experience the presence of grace in the world. This is a fine example of a pamphlet doing what a full collection cannot easily achieve: the concentrated power of short, linked poems to form a coherent and memorable lyric meditation. Please welcome Nadira Wallace.
Good evening, everyone. It's a real honor to be here. Thank you to the judges. Thank you to Lady Marks for supporting this sort of thing, and congratulations to everyone else who's been shortlisted. And thank you for coming, those who are here, those who are watching online. Yes, Sidekicks for Clouds. I'm going to read 3 short poems, and the first is based on Virgil's Aeneid, planting Aeneid here. Aeneid, pretty much me inhabiting Aeneas. Aeneas rallying. Flick the grains of night off your puffer jacket for the 11,000th time and get yourself out the door. Here is dawn without a single need. Observe her rosy carts trundling by the side of the Thames. Observe Southbank's junked food cartons outlined, and the magpie's wings where an unearthly bleach has splashed them. Don't start that dejection thing again. There is not a niche that doesn't hold a sign for you, that won't offer, in the name of its source, one more clue. This is the death of Turnus, which happens right at the end of the Aeneas. No more world hope, and yet I keep swinging my legs. The next day is hung with unknowable dawn fire, and inside 10,000 dewdrops, the why of everything, colorfully refracted on the lawn. I roll questions about like gobstoppers, such as, what need have I for knowledge? Only teach my unripe heart love for God. No more world hope, though I persist in finding some shy, smiling way forward. And finally, once had, which is about trying not to be so terribly ambitious. Get gone, ambitiousness. What I want today, I once had natural pact with. The frost-bolted moorland, my two sisters walking across it, each morning more or less same as the dog, our first thoughts like matches striking inside the skull black until joy flared. Thank you.
Thank you, Nadira. Our final poetry tonight is Eira Murphy with her pamphlet Whetstone. Eira is from Liverpool. She is a previous Full Young Poet of the Year and has been published in Banshee magazine, Propel, and the Oxford Review of Books. She was the Young Poet Laureate for Liverpool in 2019 to 2020 and was part of Simon Armitage's Laureates Library Tour in 2021. Whetstone is a book of disappearance, transformation, and death. What's sharpened against the whetstone are, quote, mysteries of the body, reckonings with grief and relation to the non-human. There's a strangeness to these poems, but also a bold and unique voice. This is a poet who knows what they're doing, in every sense. It's direct, deeply felt, compelling, with memorable phrasing and visceral blood and earth imagery. Let's hear more from it now, and welcome on stage, Eira Murphy.
Thank you, Lindsay, and thank you to Lady Marks and to the judges. It's really a privilege to be read so carefully and beautifully, and thank you to Ignition Press as well. My father skins the rabbit. My father skins the rabbit with a tenderness I have seen him use for planting sweet peas in coming dusk, fingertips running numb over stretched skin, breaking open the stubble of an outside. Against this transformation of pink muscle to air, breath into stillness, I catch my reflection in the wideness of its eye, frame myself in dilation and capture. Anniversary. This yearly pilgrimage in search of you is like a stone split open, capable only of revealing more of itself, the long mirrored journey back towards the known. I think of your cells broken up like honeycomb, their brittle matrices delicate as breath. This yearly pilgrimage in search of you is like a stone. The mountain holds your body close to its overgrown passages and the hard ache of its silent gulf, the long mirrored journey back towards the known. At the hotel, 3 badgers with their bandit moan reflect the dark shudder of themselves. This yearly pilgrimage in search of you is like a stone. My brother turns his face into a blank unknown, reaching past the hilt of your misremembered death, the long mirrored journey back towards the known. Against the sharpness of the horizon's whetstone, I play your disappearance out across myself. This yearly pilgrimage in search of you is like a stone, the long mirrored journey back towards the known. Thank you.
I'm now delighted to introduce Judge Michael Simmons Roberts. Michael Simmons Roberts' fourth book of poetry, Corpus, was the winner of the 2004 Whitbread Poetry Award and was shortlisted for the T.S. Eliot Prize, the Forward Prize for Best Collection, and the Griffin International Prize. His sixth collection, Dry Salter, was the winner of the 2013 Forward Prize and the Costa Poetry Prize and was shortlisted for the T.S. Eliot Prize. His selected poems was published in 2016. He's also written extensively in prose and broadcast, working for many years for the BBC, in radio, documentary filmmaking, and as a producer. His forthcoming non-fiction book, Quartet for the End of Time, which is with Cape in April 2025, is about poetry, music, and grief. In 2014, he was elected a Fellow of the Royal Society of Literature, and he's a trustee of the Royal Literary Fund. He's Professor of Poetry at Manchester Metropolitan University. So Michael will now say a few words and announce the overall winner of the Poetry Award. And again, I just want to say, everyone who's been shortlisted, just congratulations to all of you, everyone who's here tonight. I'll say a little bit more afterwards, but over to Michael now. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Lindsay, for that generous introduction, yes, you were very, very generous. I didn't write that, but it was very impressive. Thank you. It's such a pleasure to be here and to celebrate such great poets and such great poetry, and to celebrate the health of the poetry pamphlet. I remember reading biographies about maybe 10, 15 years ago of poets who were flourishing and publishing in the 1950s and 60s, who regularly published pamphlets and had an embarrassment of riches in terms of the pamphlet presses they could choose from. And at that time, it seemed we were far from that. And it's back. And it's much to be celebrated, the health and vitality of the pamphlet ecosystem that we have now, and all of the poets at different stages of their careers seeing it as a critical part of their work. I'd like to thank Lady Marks. I'd like to thank Lindsay for organising all this. I'd like to congratulate all the poets who have been so remarkably generous in the poetry they've given us and the difficulty that they've given us in the process of choosing. I'll say a bit more about the shortlisted poets in just a second. But congratulations. Also congratulations to anybody who has made it down the West Coast line today, as I did, and I'm sure some of you did. It was a landslip at Nuneaton, apparently. So, first of all, just to say to my fellow judges, Norsh and Steve, thank you very much for your conversation and your wise counsel and judgment. And I hope I've represented your thoughts and ideas as much as my own here. You might recognize in some of these short notes about the books some phrases which are eerily reminiscent of the ones that you just heard from Lindsay. It's almost as if we were at the same meeting. So in alphabetical order, Jordi Dothay's Slow Burn. This is a major contemporary Spanish voice, rendered into an original pared-back, poised and philosophical meditation on loss. Nicola Healy's A Newer Wilderness, a through-composed pamphlet exploring sickness and solace in human and natural worlds with imaginative humility and cumulative power. Aaron Murphy's Whetstone. These are beautifully made lyrics of fragility and strength, exploring grief, love, and the boundaries between body and self or soul. As Bernard O'Donoghue says on the cover, these are metaphysical poems. Nadira Wallace's Sidekicks for Clouds is an ambitious, assured sequence of poems, examining the experience of faith and grace and the reality that lies behind them. It's a genuine lyric meditation. Eric Yip's Exposure This is a filmic, formally expansive pamphlet with poems of personal and political dislocation and connection, exploring queer and migrant experience. All three judges were pretty stunned and daunted by the quality of pamphlets that came in the box. So these final 5 really came out of intense and long discussions, and they really earned their place in the final shortlist. They were extraordinary. We were even more daunted and a bit gutted, really, to have to choose one, but we did. So with no more hesitation, I would say that the winner of the pamphlet prize is Nicola Healy for A Newer Wilderness.
Thank you very much, Michael. I just wanted to add to what Michael said. I really enjoyed listening to all of those poems and struck by what a strong shortlist this is and great poet. And I'm going to go and buy all of those pamphlets now and take them home and read them. And but I'm also obviously very pleased that Nicola's very delicate, beautiful poems have been recognised in this way. Nicola unfortunately can't be with us, but she has sent me a little note that I'm going to read out on her behalf. This pamphlet was 10 years in the making and sprang from many difficult years before that. I'm very grateful to the judges and to the Michael Marks Trust. I'd like to thank Paul O'Prey for believing in these poems, for his thoughtful editing, and for giving the poems a great home in Dare Gale's beautifully produced format. Thank you especially to Declan Ryan and John Glenday for their kind encouragement, edits, and advice, which has helped me to persist at uncertain times. Many thanks to David Healy and Meredi Ortega. Most of all, thank you to my father. These poems are dedicated to his memory. Me being on the shortlist would have meant the world to him. Thank you.
Congratulations to Nicola and again to everyone on the shortlist. But yes, Nicola Healy, winner of the Poetry Award 2024. Thank you also to Michael. And I'm now going to move on toward the end of the night. But it's not an end to the event. You'll be able to view this footage on the Michael Marks Awards website in the coming weeks. I'm not sure when that video will be available, but we will put it on there when we can. I'd like to again thank everyone who's been involved in creating the event, the poets and publishers who submitted but didn't quite make it onto the shortlist. Please, please, again, enter next year. And also to everyone involved in the Environmental Poet of the Year Prize and the pamphlet, How to Save a River. Last but not least, of course, thank you to everyone who's been with us here in the room or online tonight. We hope you've enjoyed it. So please also remember that the core of tonight is not just about listening to the poets and publishers, but rather about the pamphlets themselves, the fruits of all of that work. So please go to the bookstore outside and buy at least one pamphlet. Or if you're at home, follow the links on our website. It's michaelmarksawards.org. If you look at the shortlist, you'll see links to mostly the publisher's website. You can buy directly from them. Pick one that's most interested you, or all of them, go wild. And yeah, poets and publishers need this type of support from you. So if you can do it, please do. So if you're in the room, please head over to, you'll follow the general flow. I think we're going to be back in the Chaucer room, but it might be the Eliot room. Ian might correct me. Is it the Chaucer room? It's in the foyer. Of course, yes, I should have known that. We're in the foyer, so go outside into the foyer, and there'll be nibbles and canapes maybe and drinks, and you can all have a mingle and chat. And if you've been watching online, again, thank you. Please keep up the chat now on social media. So next I'm going to introduce to you Camille Ralphs, who is the poetry editor at the TLS, and that's one of our award partners. Camille's own writing has appeared in major magazines and supplements internationally, and her collection After You Were, I Am is published by Faber. She was also shortlisted for the Poetry Award a few years ago. So she's going to close the evening, but first say a few words about the TLS's involvement in the awards, I think. Either way, I'm going to hand over to you, Camille. Thank you. And good night.
It's always nice to be the person who closes an event because everyone associates you with being able to go for a drink. I won't keep you long. For those who don't know me, I'm Camille Ralphs and I handle the poetry section at the Times Literary Supplement. And for those who haven't encountered the paper before, the TLS offers comprehensive coverage of the latest and most important publications in every subject in several languages, alongside current theatre, exhibitions and film, and has done so since 1902. The TLS is delighted to be a media partner for the Michael Marks Awards, which have become an indispensable feature on the poetic landscape, encouraging acolytes and experts alike to take up the pamphlet form. Every year since 2012, we have selected one of our regular poetry critics, who are often also poets themselves, to sit on the awards judging panel and have published a roundup of the year's best poetry pamphlets to coincide with the announcement of the prize. Copies of Friday's edition of the TLS, which contains this year's roundup, are on most of the seats, I think. If you can't get hold of one, the review is also online. We are pleased to be continuing our engagement with such a vital initiative, an increasingly vital initiative, in a world where trivialities are celebrated and beautifully made things are disregarded, where expertise is mocked and culture is mangled and often left for dead. For this reason, it gives me particular pleasure to mention the most recent addition to the Michael Marks Awards winners' swag bag, the BSA Michael Marks Residency. I stayed at the British School in Athens for a week this autumn, and I can tell this year's winners that the staff are generous and knowledgeable, the library is a beautiful workspace, and it even contains a few beginners' books for classical Greek if you're interested in learning. Athens itself is enthralling and diverse, and the Sanctuary of Apollo, our god of poetry, is only a mountainside coach ride away in Delphi, if you wish to pay your respects. On behalf of the TLS, I want to thank the BSA for providing the new residency. I want to thank Lindsay for organising everything, thank Lady Marks for everything she does for these awards and for poetry in general, the Wordsworth Trust and the British Library, and thanks all of you for coming tonight. Finally, congratulations to all the poets. We wish you a very pleasant onward journey. Thank you.